Sally Helgesen es una autora, expositora y consultora conocida internacionalmente. Está catalogada como el número 15 en el mundo de los gurús líderes más influyentes y ha sido citada como uno de los 30 principales autoridades en el campo de revista Leadership Excellence. Sally es autora de 6 libros, el más reciente The Female Vision Women's Repower at Work, que abre sus nuevos caminos mediante la exploración de cómo las ideas estratégicas de las mujeres pueden fortalecer sus carreras y beneficiar a sus organizaciones. Su bestseller, The Female Advantage, Women's Ways for Leadership, aclamado como la obra clásica en los estilos de liderazgo de las mujeres, ha sido traducido a 12 idiomas y ha estado continuamente en la empresa desde hace 22 años. The Web of Inclusion, A New Architecture for Building Great Organizations, fue citado en el Wall Street Journal como uno de los mejores libros sobre liderazgo de todos los tiempos. Sally desarrolla y ofrece programas de liderazgo a las corporaciones, universidades y asociaciones de todo el mundo. Algunos han sido Microsoft, IBM, Johnson & Johnson, Prudential Financial, Pfizer, Textron, HP, entre otros. Se ha consultado con el PNUD en la creación de oficinas en los países más igualitarios como África y Asia. Artículos sobre su trabajo han aparecido en Fortune, The New York Times, Fast Company y Business Week. Su libro más reciente, The Female Vision Women's Repower at Work, explica que las mujeres y los hombres experimentan el mundo de manera diferente y ven las cosas de manera distinta. Los hombres tienden a tener una forma lineal de pensamiento que excluye cualquier papel de la emoción o la empatía. Las mujeres son más empáticas, más conscientes de la importancia crítica de los factores interpersonales, tanto dentro como fuera de la organización. La autora se adentra en la historia de varias mujeres cuya visión mejoró a su empresa basado en una extensa investigación y experiencia del trabajo. Helgesen nos demuestra que lo que las mujeres perciben en las organizaciones es más de lo que un empleado masculino puede notar, y esto es exactamente lo que las compañías necesitan para alcanzar el éxito.
So I'll start with women's strengths. To talk about that, I need to go back a little bit and give you some background on how I got interested in researching and talking about, learning about, writing about women's leadership. It came from my own experience. In the mid-late 80s, I made a bit of a career shift. I went from being a journalist and academic, working on my own, to working in corporate communications. And now I was in the big real world, and I wondered what I needed to learn in order not only to fit in, but to have some real influence and power in organizations that felt at times overwhelming to me. So I did 2 things. First of all, I studied the men around me because it was all men in the organizations I was part of and at the level I was at. And secondly, I read a lot of books which were being written in the 70s and 80s for women power and how to get it, that type of book, and to try to see what I could learn. And I learned a lot, but I found that my own experience and my own beliefs and my own intuition diverged from what I was reading in 2 important ways. First of all, everything I read emphasized the negative. Women hadn't played football, so we didn't understand teamwork. We didn't use sports metaphors routinely, so we couldn't motivate teams. We hadn't been naval pilots, so we didn't have a leadership presence. There was an endless emphasis on how women were, to some extent, handicapped for the workplace. And as I mentioned last night at the Founders Dinner, women seem to provide an inexhaustible market for books about what is wrong with them. We're very eager to buy those. But I felt in this case, women who love too much, love the wrong people, whatever. But I felt that in this case, that by having a negative slant on this, that we could really squander an opportunity. The other thing I noticed in everything that I read was that there was a presumption that none of this was going to change. somehow one half of the human race was going to come into organizations in significant numbers, and everything was going to remain the same, and we were just going to have to totally adapt. If it moves, one of the books I read that was most popular there said, if it moves, salute it, leave your values at home, you're in the Army now if you're in a big corporate environment. And I thought, well, first of all, I don't really believe that it's not going to change. And secondly, it was very apparent that the nature of the technologies that we were using were going to be driving significant change in any case, and that for women to adapt to the model of leadership that had been in place in the industrial era would not only feel inauthentic to many of us, but could also land us in a bad place as organizations began to change. So I was concerned that we could really squander an opportunity to make a difference and provide the kind of leadership that organizations and communities really needed if we continued with this negative focus and if we acted on the presumption that nothing was going to change. So I decided I was going to do something about it. And what I did was began a series of diary studies of some of America's best women leaders. My idea was that I wanted to be able to share with organizations what they could learn from how superb women leaders did things. That was the research that became the book, The Female Advantage.